Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Ping Quick Wins for Your Cycling Policy. My name is Merten de Kinderen. I'm a communication manager at Mobiel 21. For those not familiar with our organization, Mobiel 21 is a Belgian non-profit organization that sets people in motion towards more sustainable and active forms of transport. We work both with citizens and with policymakers, and we connect them through co-creation and participation processes, as well as citizen science campaigns. And the Ping tool we are presenting to you today is one of such campaigns. I say we because I'm not the only speaker here today. Let me also introduce Elke Francois, a colleague of mine at Mobiel 21. Good morning, Elke. Could you maybe briefly introduce yourself to the crowd?
As Merten said, good morning, everyone. My name is Elke Francois, working at Mobiel 21 for a long time already, and I'm a citizen science project officer, and so mainly working on citizen science projects, as Ping is one of those citizen science projects. And I'm very happy to share with you all what Ping can do for you.
Thank you very much, Elke. We're looking forward to it. Next up, we also have Tim Asperges with us as a speaker. Good morning as well, Tim. The same question to you, a brief introduction of who you are and where you work.
Hello, my name is Tim Asperges. I am the advisor on mobility policy for the city of Leuven. And recently, end of November, we have been testing the Ping buttons in Leuven during the Polish conference, and we will explain about the experiences that we had with the Ping.
Thank you, Tim. Great. Finally, we also have Mihai Gete with us from Bike Citizens. Hi, Mihai. Good morning. Again, the same question to you as well.
Hello, my name is Mihai Gete. I work for Bike Citizens, which is a technical partner within the Ping campaign. In general, I'm in charge of the software, so like I'm the IT guy. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the Ping campaign or about data analysis in that regard.
Great. So indeed, Mihai will be more than happy to answer any technical or more technological or software questions you might have. That's why we have a tech guy here. So thank you very much for joining us, Mihai. Right, all set. So I propose we start. Over the last few years, cities and towns across Europe have invested heavily in cycling, or at least they are contemplating how to improve their cycling network. Some examples. New cycling infrastructure is constantly being built from separated bike lanes, bridges. Excuse me. New cycling infrastructure is constantly being built from cycling lanes, bridges, and tunnels along busy commuter routes to cycling streets or cycling zones in city or town centers. Policymakers are also investing in cycling safety, for example, by redesigning intersections, adapting crossing times, or lowering speed limits for cars. And last but not least, of course, they roll out communication campaigns to convince people of the many benefits the bike brings. The result of such investments are clear. They pay off. As we can see, there is a growing number of cyclists and a growing number of cycling trips as well in many European countries. In short, it appears that the slogan "Build it and they will come" still holds true. Yet, local policymakers don't always know how cyclists perceive and evaluate these investments, or even their cycling experience in general. Do people indeed feel safer now than in the past? Are there comfortable cycling routes? Are there bottlenecks in the cycling network? And what are the dangerous spots they still encounter along their route? As these questions indicate, it's not just hard facts and figures that matter. We can count the number of cyclists, we can count the number of traffic incidents involving cyclists, and so on. But these numbers do not offer insight into the subjective or the gut feelings of cyclists on our roads. These gut feelings, however, have a significant impact on people's cycling experience, of course. An example, take a look at the pictures you see here on screen and think a moment about the questions you see. Do these people feel safe cycling at these particular spots? Do they feel comfortable? Or do they want change here? As a policymaker who might not visit these stretches of road every day, answering such questions is not always straightforward. Luckily, there is a group who does have the answer and who can tell you whether or not they feel safe or comfortable cycling. The cyclists themselves, of course. Cyclists have personal experience and practical expertise in navigating a city or town cycling network. They are ideally placed to help policymakers evaluate the current situation, as well as to identify issues that negatively impact their cycling experience. How did it go in the past? Often cities and towns used time-consuming participation processes or long-running studies and research to engage cyclists or to gauge their opinions. Today, however, a new approach is possible. Ping. Developed by Mobiel 21 and Bike Citizens, Ping is a low-threshold, easy-use tool that turns cyclists into citizen scientists. Through Ping, cyclists gather data about their own cycling experience. This includes the routes they travel, the bottlenecks they encounter along the way, unsafe situations, inadequate infrastructure, conflicts with other road users, and so on. How does this work in practice? Let's have a look at how cyclists gather data through Ping. All they need to get started is a Ping button, like you can see here, the Bike Citizens app on their smartphone, and a bicycle, of course. If they have all these requirements, they can start using Ping. To do so, cyclists first attach the Ping button to the handlebar of their bike, like you can see on the picture here on screen. Then they connect their button to the Bike Citizens app on their smartphone via Bluetooth. And before each bicycle ride, they activate the app. Next, cyclists can simply hop on their bike like they do on any other day. While cycling, if they encounter a conflict, bottleneck, or an unpleasant situation along their route, they simply press the button. They create, as we like to call it, a ping. Each ping is sent to the app, which saves the route the cyclist has traveled, the ping, and of course, its exact location. It's easy as that. Once at their destination, cyclists can go to the app again to categorize their pings. Categorizing pings is not obligatory for the proper function of the tool, but it is a way for cyclists to give more info about the specific reason or the cause for their ping. The categories in the app are broad and cover issues like bad road surface, conflict with a pedestrian, a crossing time that was too short, just to name a few. This approach, combining pings with categorization, is quite unique. It allows cyclists to flag issues in real time while remaining on their bike. So they do not need to stop or take a picture of the issue they want to flag. They can simply push the button, continue their journey, and add more context once they arrive at their destination. Quite convenient, quite easy to use. Of course, Ping is not only easy to use for cyclists, it also offers policymakers an intuitive analytics tool they can use to make practical, real-life decisions based on the collected data. The analytics tool and its visualizations help cities and towns to better understand the wishes and needs of cyclists, to identify quick wins, to determine priorities, to allocate budgets, and to take targeted measures. In short, the analytics tool, policymakers can pinpoint small improvements that will make a big difference to a lot of cyclists. My colleague Elke, by the way, will come back to this topic and dive deeper into the analytics tool in a few minutes. And finally, for me, I would like to stress that cities and towns, both big and small, can use Ping as they see fit. The tool has already been tried and tested in various settings. This includes cities using Ping for a broad campaign covering their entire territory, as was the case in Brussels and Amsterdam, for example. Or they can use it for a targeted campaign, zooming in on a specific target group or a target area. Munich and Leuven did it this way. These different options in terms of scope are reflected by the numbers I've included on the slide, where you can see that there are different possibilities in how many cyclists are involved in a Ping campaign, how many data points are collected. There's like a variation possible depending on the scope or the approach a city or town wants to take. In any case, irrespective of the campaign scope, Mobiel 21 and Bike Citizens offer tailored support to local policymakers, from setting up the Ping campaign and engaging enthusiastic cyclists to analyzing the collective data. Now, let's have a look at how this might work in practice. We did a Ping campaign in the city of Leuven, which my colleague Elke and of course Tim would like to tell you more about. So I'll let you share your screen, Elke.
I'm unmuted, you can hear me?
Yes.
All right, and you can see my screen. That's the question you always have to ask in a webinar. You can see my screen?
Yes.
All right, okay, perfect. Thank you. I will explain shortly the Ping campaign at the Polish conference in Leuven, and then we'll explain after my short presentation all about the investments and the reasons and the background of being a part of this campaign. So the PING campaign was a short, very targeted campaign, and it ran during the Police conference in November 2023. And participants were coming from Leuven, but also an international mobility professionals were participating in the PING campaign during this Police conference. So it was city employees, but also people living and working in Leuven as mobility professionals, and next to that also this international public that was participating. The focus was on the specific route to the venue from the train station to the event venue, but Tim will tell you more about this specific route. Some facts and figures very shortly about this PING campaign in Leuven. So it was just 11 days around the Police conference. 14 users participated in this campaign. There were 311 pings were collected and 182 of them were categorized, as Merten has told you that they can be categorized. 214 tracks were collected during this campaign, which counted for 684 kilometers, and those pings were distributed across 93 tracks. With these numbers, we just want to show you that with this small campaign, a lot of interesting data can come out of it, and a lot of things can be done with this really small campaign. But Tim will explain you now why ping could be of interest for Leuven, or was of interest for Leuven. So I'll give the floor to you, Tim.
Yes, okay, thank you. So first of all, very short about Leuven. So Leuven, 100,000 inhabitants and almost 65,000 students. So a real student town and city. And one of the goals of the city is to become a climate neutral city by 2030. But within that context, Leuven is also one of the of the mission cities, which have been selected 100 cities in Europe. It's on the next slide. And one of the goals or one of the breakthrough projects in that mission is, of course, to increase the number of cyclists. On the next slide, you see that at this moment, the city of Leuven has been implementing different policy plans on mobility. One of the most important ones that we have been implementing some years ago in 2016 is the so-called traffic circulation plan. And what is important in the approach of Leuven is that we already have a tradition in doing a lot of pre and after countings, really to measure the impacts of what we are doing. In that context, it was interesting to know that we could also test the ping buttons where it is easy to do pre and after countings or pre and after experiences of the users. Example here in the traffic circulation plan, we only did pre and after countings of the traffic, but making it wider with ping, you get more information. On the next slide, you see also within that traffic circulation plan, we did a lot of initiatives on cycling. One of the measures what we have been implementing recently is also to besides having a zone 30 in our city center, that we have also implemented a cycle zone in our city center because of that we had the impact in the traffic circulation plan of an increase of cyclists, and that we don't have the space anymore to separate cyclists and cars. Now in the city center, 75% of the road network is a bicycle zone where cyclists have priority. On the next slide, you see that also, that are some pictures of implementing that bicycle zone in the city center. Next slide. Also, a wide range of cycle infrastructure or mixing traffic measures. So traffic calming is a key element in that. And you see also on this slide, the start of an important route towards a more peripheral located research park, where we also hosted the Police conference. On the next slide, I think I show, that's the Police conference. That was also the period where we did the ping campaign. And what is important, we had the opportunity to have some foreign people that don't know about Leuven. They were involved in giving their impression on a specific cycle route. And at the same time, during that campaign, I had also a lot of colleagues we were involved in doing the same procedure. Because by doing that, we also collected more information also outside of the route, which I come in later in the presentation. Next slide, Elke. So important, the X which we have been testing. You see here a map of the cycle route network in Leuven, where we are also investing in cycle highways, and the route which we have been testing on the next slide, you see it, is the connection of the city center railway station towards the research park, where we have a big campus with 4,000 students, where we have a research park with 10,000 employees, which is more peripheral, and where we have been investing in improving the cycle routes towards that business park or that research park. And the route where we have been testing the PIN campaign is that green route, which is partly an upgrade towards a cycle highway, and it's partly an upgrade to a bicycle street where you are in a mixed area. I show some slides what we have been doing on that route, and also some slides how it looked before. First important connection was connecting the railway station towards the cycle highway. We have been building this nice bicycle spiral with that. Next slide. The second part is the complete redesign of a busy road for cars, which was a connecting road to some important roads in Leuven, where we have been transformed that X. It's called the Martelarenlaan, and it's now the Park Bellevue, towards a bicycle highway in a mixed area, so it is a bicycle street. In the next slide, you see how it looked before. So it was before really a car-oriented area, and we have moved the car X towards the level of the railroad. So if you see on these slides that the car traffic almost disappeared, and instead we have rebuilt a park and a bicycle highway in the form of a bicycle street. You can go through these slides to give just an impression how it looked, how it's looking now. Yeah, next slide, Elke. Yeah, you can go further. So that's how the infrastructure is looking now. Then we come in the next part of that route, where we have been building a bicycle tunnel under an important X entering the city center. And in the next part, we go through the tunnel. We come in an area. It is a more residential area with a normal local road. And that local road, it was a road in cobblestones. And also that road, we have been transforming it to a bicycle street. So that's more the impression. We upgraded the quality of that bicycle routes towards the research park, also towards the conference venue. And then give the floor to Elke to show what are the results. I suppose everybody expects it are good results. In the later part of this presentation, we will also show some critical points how you can use the ping button.
Thank you, Tim, for this introduction. It was really interesting to have this introduction, because you will see indeed what PIN can learn, or what PIN can help you to learn with all these investments that has been doing. So I will dive into the data. I will do it by having some screenshots, because the analytic tool is a real-time analysis and visualization of these data that is collected. And when I talk about data, I'm talking about the route data, but also the PIN data. So there are two types of data that are collected, analyzed and visualized in this analytic tool. If you have some questions about analytics that you would like to see, but I do not show here in this during this presentation, and just put a question in the chats, and maybe afterwards we will have some time to dive into in real time in the analytic tool. I will show you with this presentation, or during this presentation, that Ping is a great tool, of course. I think you are aware that we find it, or we think it's a great tool, but it's a great tool to evaluate, adapt implementations that you have been doing based on the feedback that you have from the cyclists using the implementations or the things that has been changed in your city. But next to that, it's also a very great tool to test, check, evaluate, and also adapt plans. Maybe you have planned something, but you're not really sure, is this the good way to go forward? And you can test it, check it with this kind of analysis and visualization of the data. And last but not least, it's also a very great tool to use to develop your plans. Maybe you don't know where exactly you should do the investment, and this kind of data can help you to make the right decisions. So there was a lot of text with just a simple title on the slides, but next slide will show you a bit more. What I also want to add, firstly, before I really dive into the data, there's next to the route data and the Ping data, also some kind of other data that we can collect with this Ping campaign. There is an in-app survey. We use this also for the Ping campaign in Polis in Leuven, or during Polis in Leuven. We asked 3 questions, just about gender, age, and about cycling experience in Leuven, because we also had international people involved cycling in Leuven, and it would be really good to know, have they been cycling before, and what is their way of giving feedback on the cycling infrastructure. Because it was a small amount of people that were doing this campaign, it was a bit of a tricky thing to announce here the outcome of these demographic in-app survey. But we've learned in previous campaigns, bigger campaigns, that it's really useful to dive into this data more in depth. But we will not do this here for this campaign. The first thing that I want to show you is a bit of a repetition what Tim has been telling you about the investment in the route towards the venue, but this heat map based on the data coming out of the Ping campaign, shows you the route to the venue that has been used a lot during this campaign. You can see it here on this heat map. This one is the route, and it has been used quite intensely during the campaign, of course, which is very logic. But you can just check very clearly the route here. The very first real analytics that is interesting to see is indeed a combination of the heat map and the Ping data. Very general still, here you can see on that specific route towards the venue that there are not a lot of pings, which is something that Tim was saying. It will be all positive, but indeed there are still some points or things that can be learned, of course, out of this Ping data. The next slide will show you a thing about, did the city of Leuven do the right investments? This multi-map visualization, so you can see there's a multi-map, 2 maps next to each other. You can do this in this analytic tool, and it calls on the right-hand side, it's intensity simulation. On the left-hand side here, you see that the general heat map, and this one shows the intensity simulation. This simulated intensity map shows the number of cyclists on a specific road or road segment that should be there if everybody would choose the shortest routes. It gives a clear idea of where cyclists want to cycle. Because cyclists want to take the shortest route, of course, also the safest one. But this one shows you next to each other that on that specific route to the venue, it's the same in this intensity simulation. So the city of Leuven has invested in the right route, the shortest route towards the venue. Another interesting analysis of the use of the network is having a look at the speed of the cyclist on the road network. It shows you how the network has been used. On a general overview here on the left-hand side, you see that on the route towards the venue, cyclists can have quite a high speed towards the venue, but then you have to dive into, of course, into more specifically on specific spots, and you see on specific spots that there is some lower speeds. I have to admit that what I'm going to dive into more in depth here is not really a part of the route to the venue, but you can also click here in this analytic tool on specific road segments and have more detailed info, the number of cyclists passing there, but also the speed in one direction and the other direction, so you can have a bit more or a lot more of detailed information. But when you dive into here, more specifically on that specific spots, you see there is a lower speed read on that specific segment here. And then you can make use of the ping data. Dive into the specific spots and dive into the ping data. What are the reasons that people are slowing down here? And if you focus on here, then people or participants gave the feedback that was too narrow to cross other road users, so they had to slow down. So ping can give you some feedback here. Another interesting analysis and visualization here is this accessibility of the venue based on the isochrones towards a specific spot. This black spot is the venue. But this kind of analysis or visualization can be used to do a before and after evaluation, before an investment and after an investment. What is the impact on the accessibility of a specific location? This specific location can be the train station, but it can also be a venue or a research area, as Tim has been talking about, this business area that the venue is located in. And here you can see that on the north of the venue, the green area is a bit bigger. In the south, it's less bigger than in the north. It could be because of different reasons. Maybe it's a bit more hilly here. Could be, and I think that's the case. But also here you can see the impact of the investments here. So cyclists can go further in a shorter time thanks to the investments. Another very interesting analysis is the attractive routes, and have a look at the preferred and avoided routes. The red, more red means that there are less cyclists, like for here and here, than expected, based on the shortest route again. And green segments are mean that there are more cyclists than expected, also based on the shortest routes. In general, you see here that the route towards the venue is a good one. It's more or less green. You can see here in the north, but Tim will tell you more about this later on. There are some issues there. And you can dive into this in more detail. And here you see the impact of the investment in the tunnel that Tim has been talking about, that was going under this big road here. And you should expect that this one is the shortest and cyclists would use this one. But the investment here in the tunnel, it made it go cyclists use more this tunnel, of course, because it's safer, definitely safer, because it's faster. So cyclists are using this one. Now I would like to give you an overview of the pings. I will just show you a few categories because Martin has been talking about the categories that people can dedicate to specific pings they have been sending in. We have 8 main categories, and for every main category, there are several subcategories. You see here an overview of the pings that were collected during the campaign, and I will dive into a few of them because otherwise it will be too much to talk about. The first one that I would like to talk about is infrastructural design. Tim showed you some investments in this infrastructural design on the route towards the venue, and as you can see, this has not been used a lot on the route to the venue. This infrastructural design, which means that this investment was a good one. Although there is still some things to learn. Again, a bit here on this spot, which is not really a part of the route to the venue, but here it was mentioned that was too narrow. So maybe it could be, but not so an easy fix, to think about moving away parking in the streets to make it easier to cross other road users. And here it was on the route to the venue. It was where people had to get off the cycle highway or get on the cycle highway, and there it was mentioned that it was quite dangerous because there was not enough visibility, not enough a clear signal to what to do there as a cyclist. So this could be an easy fix to make it more safe there. Another category that I would like to dive into is stress and emotions as a main category. There are some issues there on the route to the venue. Not a lot, but some. Tim has been talking about the cycle streets. That is a big part of this, the route to the venue. And on the cyclist streets, car drivers cannot take over on cyclists. They have to stay behind the cyclists. Although there was some issues here on aggressive car driver on the route to the venue. So it could be an idea that car drivers are not well aware enough about the rule that they cannot take over on cyclists, or maybe they just don't want to wait behind cyclists, but it could be an idea that a communication campaign can help to teach car drivers, but also make it more visible that it's a cycling streets and that they have to stay behind. Another category that I want to show you something about is the road surface, which is important here. I didn't mention that before, but you can use here exclude duplicate users or users duplicates. And it's really important to do this with this main category, road surface, because you don't want to have here that person that is pinging for every pothole every day over and over again. It doesn't mean anything to count that up. So exclude exclude users duplicates here on the road surface, and there you can see that again on the route to the venue there's not a lot of road surface issues, but working on road surface can be an easy fix and makes cycling for cyclists in your city way more comfortable. So it could be a good idea to have a look there. And the last one that I want to talk to you about, the last pink category that I want to talk to you about is about conflicts on streets. And it's mainly because of Tim has been talking about the cycle zone in the inner city center, because those is mentioned in the inner city center several times. And it was mainly because of blocking passage as a cyclist, or that car drivers were close overtaking you as a cyclist. And that was the reason of this pinging here, or mainly in the city center. And again, this is all about the cycling zone. Car drivers have to stay behind. So it could be indeed, again, an idea to invest in this communication or visibility about the rules in a cycling street or a cycling zone. I've been talking really fast. I hope that you have a lot of questions put in the chats. But on the other hand, then I will go to the next slide and again give the floor to Tim again.
Okay, thank you, Elke. For the next slides in Leuven, what we also saw in the specific case that we organized end of last year was that we also had some participants using the ping buttons that lived a little bit further from the venue. And that we also saw that there are some routes that people are not taking. Because the ping system is also doing some calculations of what would normally be the preferred route. And on the slide which you see here, it is a route where we already did part of the investments of improving the cycle infrastructure, but there is still a certain track that is not on a high level. And on the next slide, you see that in the that on part of that track we recently did also a big improvement of the quality of the cycle infrastructure. Next slide, Elke. So it is now part of the cycle route going along the ring road, which is connecting, for instance, the university hospital to the city center to the railway station. So that part of the cycle track has already been implemented. And on the next slide, you see that another track on the route that I mentioned some slides before, it's still in that kind of environment. So I don't know if you noticed, but at the right side, we have a cycle path. And when you can go further, Elke, and on that track, again, this is the actual situation. But in the future, we have already made plans to improve also the cycle infrastructure in a connection of an important road coming from Herent, a neighboring country, neighboring municipality of Leuven, towards the city of Leuven. Next slide, Elke. So now it looks like that, and in the future there have been made plans how we can improve and make the cycle infrastructure much more comfortable and much more safer. So we expect, when you see on the next slide, that the track that they normally choose to follow will change in the future, and we could also follow up that with the ping buttons. Elke, can you go to the next slide? Next slides. Then another issue which is important where we would like to use the ping system is recently we have also made a new mobility plan in the city district of Kesselo, where we collected in the beginning a lot of weak points regarding cycling. So also a lot of dots based on participation of our inhabitants. Where are the problem issues regarding cycling? Next slide, Elke. And what we do in making such a mobility plan, we try to collect as much as information involving our citizens. So collecting weak points, it's more artisanal if you don't use the ping button. But another system which is at this moment quite successful is the so-called weak count sensor, where a lot of inhabitants in Kesselo or in that city district have a sensor that they put on their window, and that sensor is collecting real-time data on traffic, both cycle traffic, car traffic, and all the traffic flows that pass streets. Next slide. So that's the overview of these sensors, but additional to collecting that kind of data, which you also see on the next slide, is real-time available for everybody. Both the city administration is going to use these data, but also citizens can use these data to have a discussion where there are problems or how big the problems are regarding traffic. It would be an added value if we can also use the ping button to collect data of where there are problems regarding cycling. Next slide, Elke. And this was the way we did it in the plan. All the points that are now noted on that map were the weak points or the working points where we have to improve the quality of cycling in that city district. It would have been nice if we could help the citizens giving the sensors to collect data, but also giving some citizens in a certain period to collect data on the quality of our cycle network. I think that's everything on that issue.
Thanks a lot, Tim, for that explanation and for the positive outlook on the future of sustainable and active mobility in Leuven. Looking forward to seeing all these things change and seeing cyclists having even more fun than usual. Maybe we can open up the floor to questions now. I've seen some questions appear in the chat, so I'm just going to throw them into the group or point them to the right person. Mihai, I think this is a question you can answer. Marco asks, can the categorized data points routes be downloaded as GIS data for further internal analysis? Do you know the answer?
Yes. So yes, the ping point data is also made available as GeoJSON, so that's a standard format. In general, we're rather flexible with what formats we can offer. The trajectory data is also available in different aggregation forms, depending on exactly where one sits with the privacy domain. So it's always very important, to have the users acceptance that they are actually sharing the tracks where they went and so on for a research project. If one doesn't want this level of accuracy, it's always possible to get the aggregate data, which is more about like what you can see in analytics. So aggregate data based on how many cyclists were on a specific street or what were the speeds at different times and so on. So in general, yes, the data can be made available.
Thanks, Mihai. Does that answer your question, Marco? Please.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Another question Marco asks is, how many participants does one need for representative insights? Maybe Elke, is that a question you can answer?
Yes, I can. The thing is, why would you need a representative sample of your cycling population to have these kind of data? I don't think that it's that important, as we have shown with this small campaign also. That you can learn a lot from a very small group also, because when it's dedicated to a specific route, to a specific venue, to a specific question, and the question is, do we need a representative sample to have these kind of interesting data gathered and to learn a lot from? On the other hand, I showed you the in-app survey, so you can fine-tune a bit your people that are participating and see what you learn from women. Are they different than men, for example, or does cycling experience play a role indeed? So you can use this kind of data to fine-tune the input that you have received. But we never speak of a representative sample of a population or a cycling population. What I forgot to mention at the beginning of my presentation is that we also motivate to do this analysis. We haven't done this with this police campaign, to do the analysis together with your cyclists, because they can give again the extra feedback, the extra insights when doing the analysis together with your cyclists. So that's also important to have a broader view, a broader idea on the solutions or the ideas or the evaluation that you want to get out of it. I hope that was also an answer to your question, Marco.
Then we have a question from Anne Cardinals from the town of Heus-de-Zolder here in Belgium. She asks if she can get more info on the price of ping, especially for a smaller town or city like Heus-de-Zolder, for example. Elke, maybe that's for you as well, or?
Yes, it's very difficult to put on an exact price on general, but as we have seen here in Leuven with a small number of ping buttons or ping users, it can go from, we can start from 10,000 euros, for example, with a very small campaign, with a very dedicated short periods. We can go up to 1,000 participants, which mean, of course, a bigger campaign, a bigger, more time of work for Mobiel 21, for Bike Citizens, to do it all together. So it really differs related to the question, the needs that you have. We can get back to you, and then we can see what are your needs, what are your questions, and give you a more dedicated, detailed answer to that question, if that's fine for you.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is it muted, Merten?
Apologies. I just wanted to jump in and say that Arno asked a similar question or a related question about how much a single ping button costs. Is there a price for a single button, or is this a campaign price, to put it that way, Elke?
Well, talking about the price, it includes, and maybe I can give you a bit of more information, it includes indeed the price of the ping button, and it also has an impact on the price, of course, but it also includes, as I showed you, just the screenshots of the analytic tool. It also includes this license, of course, to the analytic tool, and the work that Bike Citizen is putting into it, having this data analyzed and visualized in the analytic tool and available, ready to use for you as a city. So this is also a part of the price. So it's not only about the ping buttons. And then we have to think about or discuss what do you want to have as a campaign? How much do you want to involve the participants? How many participants do you want? Are you as a city doing the communication and the recruitment of the participants, or do you ask us to do so? So it will all have an impact on the price. I hope that's another too broad or abstract answer to your question, but I hope it gives you an idea.
Okay.
Tim wants to say
Tim.
something.
Yeah, I would like to add some issues. So my experience was that with a rather small group of people that are using the ping buttons during a very strict period, we got quite a lot of information. And how I would do it, for instance, if we would have been preparing a new mobility plan, and we will do in other city districts, also the way we are doing citizens engagement, for instance, the we count sensors, we don't need 1,000 sensors, because we try to look for citizens that want to engage in being involved in collecting these kind of data. So also in the approach of looking for citizens that want to engage themselves to collect data on the quality of the cycle route, you don't need a huge amount of people. You need people that want to engage themselves to collect that kind of information and give input to the city to do something with that. So I don't give a number how many people you need, but I think you need to organize some kind of campaign who wants to be part of that kind of project, and then giving them the material to collect the data. And that is interesting to do it in a short period. Another possible action that could be of value is that you use some citizens, not a lot, very few citizens that want to engage themselves to do it permanently, because we do cycle infrastructure. We also have people in the city administration that take care, are there some problems or do we need to repair something? But if you also involve citizens in detecting small problems in your road network, it is always added value for the city administration, as we don't have the eyes on every spot in Leuven. So finding some, I don't know how to call it, Peters and meters in Leuven that want to be involved to do it permanently, it could also be of added value.
Thank you, Tim, for that reply. Arnold's question also had some different aspects covered. What is your experience about the ping button? Are they stolen sometimes from the bikes? That can happen, of course. You attach it to your handlebar like you do with like a small LED light or an LED light you use during wintertime or when it's dark. So you can easily remove it. I don't know if you can see it like this. It just has a plastic strap. You put it around your cycling bar, put it like this, so it is fixed. So it's like 10 seconds to remove it or 5 seconds to put it back on. Obviously, you can leave it on a bike. You're never sure. People don't really know what it is, but we would like advise to remove it every time. Just put it in your pocket, put it in your backpack or something. It's really easy. It's not that difficult. It's just the same reflex as if you're using an LED light. And then another part of the question is, what's the advantage of compared to using a button in an app which is fixed to your handlebar? Maybe Elke, you can explain that, why the design chose a button like this?
I don't really completely understand what is the advantage compared to using a button in an app.
You can like attach your smartphone to your handlebar, let the app stay open, and you have a button there you can press on screen. I think
we really don't want cyclists being active on their smartphone when cycling, because that makes it really dangerous. And just pushing the button, because in some countries it's also not allowed to have a cell phone or being busy or active on your cell phone while cycling, and we don't want to promote this. And just clicking on the ping button makes it really, really user friendly and easy. So that's the main advantage of this ping button adding on instead of an app. You don't have to stop also, indeed, because you also have some tools indeed where you have to stop, take a picture, for example, and this one makes it, you can keep on cycling, just push the button and keep on cycling. That's the main advantage as we see it.
Thanks. And indeed, I don't like using my smartphone on my bike either, just because I'm afraid I might drop it, or I don't know why, but just pressing like this small sturdy button, which is waterproof, it's shockproof, it feels more safe, and just one push is enough, and you can just focus on the road again, no distraction. So indeed, thank you. Are there any other questions, maybe in the chat, or just ask them here in the group? I don't see any raised hands. No more questions from the group about the analytics tool or about other aspects? Tim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have two just additions. My experience was that there were also some indicators not already in the ping criteria. For instance, lacking of lightning. It was in a period that it is dark in Leuven. And in that period, you really, as a cyclist, are noticing also places where it is really unsafe to do a crossing where there is no lighting. So just a tip. And the other issue, I don't know if people would do it, but also giving more information of that cyclists like a certain route would also be of added value for the city. If you do then again a pre and after counting or measuring every 2 or 3 years, you could probably also see some reactions of how people are liking the change in quality of cycle routes.
Thank you for that, Tim. Always something that we think of. Indeed, the positive pinging. It's a bit of a thing that we tried in Amsterdam. It's maybe it's very human, but people prefer to give negative feedback. Yeah, complain instead of positive feedback. But I understand the comment, and I really appreciate also the comment that indeed it also really depends on the campaign. If you want to learn from the cyclists how to make it better, or if you want to learn from the cyclists what is good, and then make other things better, it really depends on the campaign. But it's something that we will take into account when working or looking into being more in depth in the future, definitely. And the other thing that you said was some categories that were missing. Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Those can always be looked at. Those are 8 predetermined category groups, I believe, which have another 8 subcategories, if I'm not mistaken. So 64 predetermined categories in total, which was designed that way to make it easier for people once they arrive at their destination. They open the app, they want to give more context about their ping. They don't necessarily have to describe the issue themselves. They can just go through the categories, click what they know happened, bad road surface, conflict with a pedestrian, conflict with a car, whatever it is, to make it really intuitive and easy for people to add that context so they don't have to type or write long texts about it. But those categories can always be looked at. That's no issue. Any other questions or comments? If not, no. If not, I'd like to thank you all for participating. Thank Tim and Elke for joining me as speakers here today. Thank Mihai for being here for the technological questions. As already said in the chat, another question I see is ping only in English. No, Carmen, the app can be changed to Dutch or to German. I know it has been used, so that can be changed the language. Right, Elke?
Correct, and other languages. So it's definitely available in Dutch and French, Dutch, French, German, and English. Other languages are not included yet.
Any other questions? Okay, as I already said in the chat, we will send the presentation as well as the recording of this call to you all, so you can share it with colleagues or send it to partners or have another look at it if you want. I'll also put up our contact details here. So if you are interested in ping or using it in your city or town, make sure to reach out to us. And hopefully someday we'll be seeing people in your city or town pinging to make cycling even more fun. So thank you all, everyone, and have a nice day.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, and thank you.
Bye.